Americans are durable. We take pride in hard work and high quality. American Giant makes durable, quality clothing right here in the USA. Because what we wear reflects who we are. When you buy American Giant, you're not just wearing the best clothes money can buy. You're helping keep jobs and pride in your own backyard. Premium clothing built to last decades, like it should. Get 20% off your first order at american-giant.com with code RightHere24.
Hi, I'm Irina Neascu, and I'm a botanical artist.
Hello, I'm Chris Stafford, and this is Art, the podcast where we get up close and personal with women from around the world of visual arts. This is Season 2, Episode 28. My guest this week is the Romanian botanical artist Irina Neascu. Irina says, I approached botanical art to continue investigating the cultural landscape from a natural perspective of the reciprocal influence and fragile intersections between culture and nature. Her professional career began in architecture and transcends academia, science, art, and illustration. Irina was born in Bucharest in 1982, the only child of Daniela and Mihai, who are both accountants. She attended the Architecture University in Bucharest, Romania, where she graduated with both a BA and MA. Irina then earned a postgraduate master's in fine arts at Rome University of Fine Arts. Following her graduation, she turned to interior design, where her name became an international brand. With exhibitions at various fairs and events throughout Europe, the main collections focused on bespoke upholstery and chairs, crafted with textile collage techniques and digital printing. Irina has worked on both old and new furniture, restoring and customizing items according to the specific needs of her clients. Her interior design collections include home accessories and furniture, in unique series or limited series. In 2016, Irina moved north of Bucharest to the Transylvania area to be closer to nature. Hiking is one of her favorite activities. Here, she opened the Irina Neascu studio, then founded an art school, Sembra School of Botanical Art and Design, where she teaches courses and workshops in painting, drawing, textile art or design, and encourages creative knowledge inspired by nature and heritage. Irina is currently a PhD candidate at the Art University in Bucharest, and later this year, she will be a Fulbright visiting scholar at Yale Graduate School of Art and Sciences History of Art Department. Irina lives in Brasov with her Weimaraner Scala. Irina, welcome to the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation.
I know it's a particularly busy time for you right now because you have some exciting news I want to tell everybody about what's going to happen for you in the next few months here. You are coming back to the States for a very special reason. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, indeed. It's a special reason. It's one of the bucket list wishes, to say so. So I've been awarded the Fulbright grant for this next academic year. So I'm gonna come back to the States as a visiting scholar in Yale University this time, and I'm gonna study history of art under, or better said, with Tim Barringer as advisor, but indeed under the bigger umbrella of 19th century history of art research and interest that it's quite well developed in Yale. So I'm really, really looking forward to this.
Of course, you are no stranger to the US. You've traveled extensively through your artwork and your studies. Irina, it's quite an interesting story in the journey that you've taken all the way from, well, Bucharest is where you were born, but you now live in Brasov, which is just north, I believe, of Bucharest.
Indeed. I'm based in Romania. and in particular in Transylvania, which is an area which a lot of people know about, especially in our field in botanical art, because of the beautiful flora and the vegetation here. It is said to be the last medieval landscape in Europe. And indeed, it's quite special. So I've been traveling in various places, mostly with studies, also with work, but I developed my career in Romania. And my travels to the US started in 2022 when I applied. Well, I'd applied in 2021 to the Oak Spring Garden Foundation Botanical Art Residency. And I was one of the lucky winners, especially that it was just after the pandemic. So they would take quite few people because it was already a big queue of artists waiting for the pandemics to be over. So, when you wish for something and you think it's really, really nice, but then you get it and you don't know what to do with it. Because I was one of those people who never had the American dream. I always thought, and don't judge me for this, but I always thought Europe is so beautiful and I would never have time in a lifetime to see it. So I never really dreamt of doing much more than Europe. But then, I got this. So I was like, yeah, of course I want to go. And I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, but it was so weird. It's been like a really, really weird feeling and beautiful at the same time that, the first time I went out from the airport, the humidity, the air, the things you first feel when you go in a new place. And I just felt like this is home. It felt so good. And every time I visited since in different parts of the US, I had a wonderful, wonderful experience. So I'm like preaching about what a beautiful country that is and what beautiful people I've met. And I'm like really an ambassador for the US here.
Well, that's wonderful. And I know that's how we met when you were here in Virginia at the Oak Spring Garden Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to know your work a little bit, which is extensive and fascinating. And I can see why you have become the student of the art world that you navigate. And I think it's a very interesting journey too, because you're constantly studying the subject as well as creating beautiful art. But I want to go back to where this all began, Irina, because you listened to the podcast and we always start way back at the beginning of the guest story. And for you, it was in Bucharest. As we said, that's where you were born in 1982. You're the only child and your parents are both economists. So tell me a little bit about that influence and how they guided your education as a young child.
Well, I think things were quite easy, and I have to admit I refer to this a lot of time when I teach high school students or young adults, and I refer to the how do you call it, the positive aspects of simplicity, which I'm not preaching, but sometimes the lack of options make you be really creative about things. And so when I was born, Romania was under a communist dictature, which made this whole landscape totally different than how we know it today. Society was very different. The freedom of speech and of self-expression was zero. There was nothing, of course, no internet, no communication, no information, no free press, no nothing. So things were really hush over here.
This was part of the Ceausescu regime then, that period?
Yes. So the revolution came when I was very young. I was 7 years old. I was already in school, but I didn't get really too much out of it. It was at the same time where my parents were getting a divorce. So it was a lot of shaking and a lot of changes, which I didn't really get. I was really happy to always to be by myself and to have my own games and drawings. And so I was really an introvert child, and I didn't really care too much about things happening outside. So as long as my mom said, everything is going to be okay, which eventually was right, I didn't really worry too much. And the family was not affected by the revolution, but it was a huge change. And then I went to high school, and I just did a regular high school. I was just doing my drawings in my spare time. And when time came, when I was like maybe 16, to choose the future university, and I chose Art University. My parents, to come back to your question, who studied economics, so are into the rational part of the thinking. They said that they fear that I'm not going to be able to secure a living with art. And back then, art was not a solution for anybody. There were no art galleries. It was no advertising industry or whatever. We can name a lot of working fields available today for artists. So they said, since you like to draw and you like to express yourself through visual representations, why don't you try architecture school? Because, being an architect means you can get a job everywhere in this world. So I listened. And I eventually started to study drawing for architecture, which is still my main way of teaching drawing and of seeing and judging composition and art in general. That was a sort of a DNA, like an artistic DNA just there. And then, so I started the architecture school. And in Romania, the architecture school lasts 6 years. So that's a bachelor and a master together. And that's a 6-year. It was 2 years of drawing study and then 6 years of architecture. But this is how basically I really listened to my parents and I went towards a proper job. It's just that soon enough I realized that I'm not an architect, deep inside, and I'm never gonna be an architect. So I guess later changes were just a matter of time.
Exactly. That this would shape your future in some way, though. But I'm wondering being the only child, what kind of things you did enjoy. Did you do sports or art or music? What kind of influences did you have as a young child?
I guess my parents tried to teach me, or not to teach me themselves, but to have me learning, I don't know, a lot of things. So I started to ski when I was 4 years old, and I still love it. I tried different sports. I'm not a good sportive, but I like being outdoors. So I've never been an athlete myself or, really into sports, but I love hiking and, skiing, as I said, or biking sometimes, or just being outdoors. I'm really comfortable with that. And they also try to have me learning something about music, maybe try piano. I just can't do music. It's just something I really, really cannot understand. So that was a failure, complete failure. Later on, I returned, and this reminds me about something funny I'll tell you in a minute. Because later on, when I had to choose my sports, I chose horse riding. So I went into that a lot. And when I had to go to an interview, and they asked me, back then it was IKEA, and they wanted a designer, and we didn't have IKEA in Romania. So the closest was Austria. So it was quite something. I was really young, and I went for the interview, and I passed a few interview phases, and then finally I went to a one-to-one interview and they asked me eventually, what sports do you like? And I was completely honest about it. And I said, well, ski and horse riding. And you know what the conclusion was? These are all individual sports, not team sports. So I was not a team player for them. So yeah, I guess everything I did for fun was very individual. Now I say it. Back then it just came normal and my parents were just happy I'm expanding my skills somehow.
And you still ski, but do you still ride?
Not that often, but I do it when I have the chance. I think it was actually 2 years ago when I last went on a horse. But I miss it. I truly miss it.
And in terms of your education, then, it sounds as if you were a very good student,
Yeah.
and you still are. You still enjoy the process of study.
Yeah. But you know, when you're young, or back then when I was young, it was being a nerd was not really something you wanted to be. But no, I think I've been a nerd my whole life, like really, I love learning and studying. So yeah.
Well, after you went to Bucharest for your bachelor's and your master's in architecture, you then went to Italy, to Rome University of Fine Arts. So how did that opportunity come around?
Well, after being in the architecture school where I actually teach at the moment, so now I'm on the other side of the story and I'm trying to be part of a change there. But when you study architecture for 6 years, everything you do and everything you see, it's in terms of how straight and parallel the lines are. So you cannot even sit comfortable at a dinner table without rearranging the cutlery so they are parallel. It's like that's just you can't help it. And then you realize that you only have architect friends because nobody can stand you as you are. Just and I'm like, yeah, I just need to see the round shapes of the life or just to have the randomness happening because everything was supposed to be very graphic and very composition based. And even now, when I teach composition, I have such a good feedback that I teach composition really good, which I don't acknowledge because it's just extremely natural. So I started to work as an architect and it was a beautiful studio and I was really happy to actually be part of that. But I just wanted to do something more creative and I had the feeling, I don't allow myself to be creative because I knew that it has to be in a certain way to be graphic, to be architectural. So I thought I would still like to do something with art, but then I thought, I could go and study interior design in an art university. So it has a bit of a connection. But then being in an art university, I could just expose myself to a different sort of teaching and learning and working, and which was a good choice. Yeah. And just Italy, it's a great choice anytime in your life. So
Of course, especially anything related to art or architecture and anything.
yeah.
So how was the experience there then? Tell us a little bit more about your experience at the Rome University.
It was difficult because I didn't know the language before. I was convinced I could easily learn it, but then this what we had to learn was very dense. So the language barrier was quite a problem for me. I don't know how things are right now, but this was 2007. Back then, in Italy, Italians would not easily accept to speak in another language than their own. So you had to learn Italian. And eventually I did, and I love it, and I still speak it. but it was a wonderful experience, and I think it made me see things from a very different perspective. I think it's just amazing to have an environment where you live, to live in an environment which is so absolutely genuinely beautiful. You wake up, you go out in the street, and everything is just beautiful. You don't have to look for the beauty. And I think it just helps you grow somehow.
What were your biggest takeaways from there, Irina?
I think subjects I've learned in the art university, which I didn't know before. I didn't have the chance to study them before, so that was new knowledge. And also the certainty that I don't want to go back to architecture. And I think if I look back, the most important and strong moments in my life were those where I acknowledged the fact that I don't want to do something, realizing that this is not for me was more important and more difficult and more powerful than seeing what is for me. I don't know how to put it in words, but yeah, Rome was the moment when I knew architecture is not for me. I can bring back the architecture in my life when I'm studying cultural landscapes or when I talk about restoration in the context of cultural landscapes. I can always address what I've learned in school, but not to produce new architecture. That's not something I want to do ever.
So follow your instincts.
Yeah, I guess.
And it's obviously created the journey that you've taken in botanical art. I'm wondering then who your influences would be then during those formative years when you were studying not just architecture but botanical art. Who was the most influential or the most impressive in terms of the inspiration you were getting from established artists?
I think the whole journey was a bit funny because back to Rome, my advisor in painting, so just naturally I would draw flowers, but not in a botanical way, maybe oil, but anyway, choose vegetal subjects to say so. And my advisor said, never in your life ever paint flowers. Which obviously I didn't listen to. And he said, flowers are just a very old subject. We need new art. You are an architect. Why don't you focus on maybe industrial, post-industrial architecture, transform that into artistic compositions? And I understood his his perspective, because he really wanted that all his students, will be self-sustainable artists. He wanted to know that we can produce art that people will want and that we can actually sell what we produce as artists. So he also tried to tell us subjects and approaches and, stuff that are maybe in trend or maybe are just modern or more acceptable in art galleries. So I kind of put flowers aside and I didn't want to think about flowers, and I tried all kinds of stuff and nothing really worked. So when I came back after this class, I came back in Romania. I didn't really find any job there, or, I didn't feel like I really belonged there. It was not really an opportunity. I think it was that economic crisis that actually eventually arrived in Romania also, as in the rest of Europe in 2009. But in Italy was already there 2008. So there were no jobs really. So I came back home and, I started to work as an interior designer. I just continued what I've studied and I did it well enough. And Yeah, so things moved on for quite a while. And I expanded my interior design office, and I had a wonderful team. And then we expanded it into textile design for interior. And we had a little team of a couple of girls working on the sewing machines, just to make all the curtains and textile decorations for our interiors. So we would have quite a busy time in the studio, but then also a lot of stress. So I still think architecture in general, it's a man's world, and I had to struggle to fit there. I did it, but eventually I got a bit sick, like literally sick. Not my health was not, it was shaky, and I had to take a break. So, the business was going well, and I just decided to step aside a little bit and just rent an apartment in this town where I live now, which is in the mountains. And it's just 2 hours away from Bucharest. So just to rent an apartment long term and to use it as a holiday house and just be here at that time, be there. From time to time, and just allow myself to do whatever makes me happy, because the business was going good enough so I could do this easily. So just not thinking about anything, about money, about priorities, about anything, I genuinely started to draw flowers. And that eventually became bigger and bigger, and I started to work with watercolors and, to observe and to draw from nature. And then I thought I can make an interior design textile collection, which I did, and to mix original paintings with this sort of merchandising, for interior design, printing on natural textiles like cotton and linen, even velvet sometimes, and make some beautiful upholstery. So that was really nice, but then it really got me. So I started to paint more and paint more, and then to research, and it was without any influence from any artist, just trying to do more and more beautiful flower paintings. And then eventually I found out about this thing, botanical art. I never knew about botanical art. So I thought, okay, I should read more about it. And I read more. And then I just wanted to learn from an artist. And I tried to see what artists there are in Europe that could teach. It was nobody in Romania. So I wanted to find something in English, which is most convenient. And then to have a class which will be like a whole week or something, like a painting holiday or something like that, not once every week because I couldn't commute. So not knowing too much, the only one who could check these boxes, was the person who became my tutor, Anita Valsmith-Sachs, which is a Dutch botanical artist, an amazing botanical artist. And I called her and I said, listen, if I come take your course, would you be able to teach in English for me? And she said, yeah, sure, come over. And I went there, and I remember it was only Dutch people. It was a group full of Dutch people and me. And she would speak in Dutch, and sometimes she would speak in English for me. And then we just connected, and we created such a strong bond, and we were so happy to work together. So I went back, and then she came in Romania a couple of times to teach for my students. And she's one of the dearest persons in terms of tutoring and working together and advising. And I would always take her advice. And people sometimes tell that she's very strict with and very traditional with composition, but I think this was also my way of, of working and of understanding how to do stuff. So we just connected very well. And she guided me on this path. And then I also studied with various other persons, artists for shorter terms, but she is the one that I could always name as my guide in botanical art world.
I just want to go back to when you were growing up. It was a difficult time with the communist regime, Ceausescu's regime. But even though you were young, I wonder culturally how it influenced you and how you feel it still does in some way inform the person that you've become, but importantly, the artist you've become. Has there been any lasting effects of growing up at a very difficult time in your home country?
I think we didn't really, or I don't recall, I don't have memories of being really difficult, also because I was a child. And we didn't really, we were a lucky family. My parents had good jobs. They themselves were good students, so they graduated in a good position. So they were both offered good jobs. And because back then you would be offered a job by the state. So, once you graduate and you finish your studies according to the grades, you would be offered a job in the big city or in a smaller city or in the rural area. So it was never the case that people would actually go to interviews or apply or move from one job to the other, And in this sense, I think my family was really in a good place, as good as one could have been back then, But I don't remember going through the very difficult periods that you could hear stories about, from other people. I will go to a normal school. I would, I wouldn't really miss anything.
I wonder what stories you might have been hearing from your grandparents. I know that your maternal grandfather was very good at drawing and technical drawing. I wonder if you had conversations with your grandparents that obviously educated you to the history of the country as well. And because all of that background informs who we become in many ways.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I think maybe I just developed a high sense for beauty and for balance and for I don't know how to say it, for well-educated and well-behaved societies. And I'm not really an underground lover because things have been really underground here. So I think for me, certain things like this professor in Rome was saying, industrial, post-industrial architecture, I can't do that. We still have the country full of that. That's, ghost places. When you live with those realities, sometimes you can't really relate to them because it's a past that you want to move out from. I didn't really have a history with my grandparents, because they also died. One of my grandfathers disappeared during the war, so I never met him. And also the other grandparents, they died when I was very young, so I didn't really grow up with them. The stories I know are mostly from my parents and also from friends and the extended family. But I think if I would try to see where this sort of history took me, I think it's into just choosing something that, Western Europe would call bourgeois,
Mm-hmm.
something that Romania did not have during the communism. Bourgeois was something that had to be killed here. And it's a sort of society that, or level of society that I dream about, because we had either workers like factory workers or very almost high level society, but not the middle class. So the intellectuals were not allowed to express themselves, were a danger to the regime. So that's probably the place where I'm trying to fit, just to add to the change here, to restore this missing part.
Yes, but of course,
And maybe that's why also my desire to, that's why I'm actually doing the PhD now, and my desire to work in the academia, because I truly believe that education can really change a society. And I guess I never thought about this actually. Thank you for the question. But I think this is where it's coming from, because I can see that this part of society here was missing for too long.
Absolutely. Well, you then established yourself really in botanical art, become the artist that you've become. What were you feeling at the time when you realized that that's what you wanted to do? You wanted to draw flowers and plants. But what was the feeling that it was giving you, Irina?
Well, I guess, as in the beginning, I thought it just makes me happy. And long time ago, when I thought what I want to do with my life, I realized that whatever I'm doing, I want to be excited that I have to wake up in the morning, to be like, wow, yay, I'm going to work, which actually can happen. It's for real. And I experienced this with the botanical art, which became a full-time job. And you know how it goes. It can be lovely when it's a hobby, but when you have to pay your bills out of it, and when it's a job, then it's completely different. Or not completely, but it involves also different parts of dealing with logistics and with all sorts of administrative parts, or you name it, clients, on the other side of the line. And it changes a bit the dynamic. And I just realized it makes me so happy. My health went back to normal by itself. It was such a huge restoration with the body and the mind. And it just happened for real. It just happened. And I knew that I need to do this. But it was something new, something that in Romania did not exist at the time. And botanical art, it's still a niche, and it's still like a hybrid in between science and art and illustration. And it doesn't really fit completely in an academic study field, or, somewhere precisely. So even now, a lot of people ask me, botanical art, what is that? What do you actually do? So sometimes this is quite annoying, but then talking about education is just normal to answer. And it's good that people actually ask, and it means that they're actually curious to know. And so it was very I don't know, pleasant as an experience and as a activity. And it was, it was intriguing, and it would accelerate all the curiosity and needs to learn more and connect with other people and understand how this works. But on the other side, it was supposed to start becoming sustainable. So that was a bit tricky in the beginning. But I think it just happened. So yeah, I still wouldn't know how to advise somebody else to do it. I think just because it's a niche, it really varies from one person to the other. But I know that botanical art can become really versatile and can become really complex as a way of expressing.
How much of your time now is divided between teaching and your own artwork, Irina? Because I know things will change when you come over here to study at Yale, but for the moment.
I think for the moment, art became secondary because of the PhD, so because of the study, and because of the teaching activity. And I'm happy about this change actually, because I think I started already to put too much pressure on producing art. And I think I needed a break to that. I had the feeling that I'm just rotating the same ideas again and again and again. And I just felt to the need, to produce something new or to find a new angle to look at things from, or to develop a new perspective. So sometimes you just need to put things aside and to go for a walk. But this time the walk was just a larger commitment. And I miss it. And I've been actually quite recently, I've been painting a little bit, just botanical art, but just for myself with no pressure on it, just for the thrill of it, the pleasure of it. But I haven't produced major artwork in quite a while. Yeah.
How about commissions? Do you still take commissions?
It didn't really happen lately, and I think I just didn't advertise it anymore. But yes, I take commissions, and I think as much or as long as it fits in my style of working, I take commissions. And also because I had this background as an interior designer, I work with interior designers. And I also produce things that are a bit more abstract. So I work in different techniques aside of or a part of botanical art. And I do produce art for interior design. And this is really nice because I work with designers and I can understand the space, other dimensions, the mood boards, the color palette, or things that some artists, they don't want to work with, or they consider they only produce their work and they don't do commission. So for me, I think it's still, with one foot in the interior design world and, just gravitating around living spaces and living environments and more than just producing a painting. And I like that. I think I like that part of the work as well.
So where do you feel the most satisfaction in all the things
That's a
that you
difficult
do?
question right now. I think teaching actually, but I think academic teaching most of all. And I think being part of, somebody else's journey when they are young, I think that's really a great task. And I like working with students. To me, 16 years old to 25, it's my age. I love working with them. And we do a good job together. And I learn a lot from them. I think all the instructors would say the same, that, you learn a lot in the process. But I feel that it's for real. We work because we need to go to a good grade and we need to go in a competition and we need to, to make a good project and then to get a scholarship. And so it's always because it's an end task. And I think what happens with a hobby sort of learning, like after work classes, it's that it's never the pressure. People sometimes go there to express themselves or to relax or to learn or not to learn that much, but more socialize with the others, which is fine. It's absolutely perfect. And we all need that. But to me, I think I get the most and I give the most when I work with students actually in the university. So yeah, I hope I can do that as a future career actually.
We go through life, particularly as students in academia, with goals. There's constantly goals, or as artists, we have goals in our professions. How would you define success then, given what you just said?
Your questions are more and more difficult, I must admit. But it's wonderful to actually make me think about these things. Success. I think it's so different from one person to the other. As obviously, to me, I think success is to grow bigger and bigger. And I think my growth is an interior one. And I feel I reach success when I reach a deeper side of me and a better side of me. And, immediately when I reach that, I want to share it with others. If I learn something or I discover something, I would love to write a paper and to present it in a conference so other people can hear what I just learned, And it's not about putting myself up on the floor, and having the microphone and being in the center of the attention. Actually, that makes me really nervous, to tell you the truth. But I love to share knowledge. And I think to me, this is a sort of success when you realize you can, through your work, you can actually empower other people so they can become bigger themselves. And my life is in such a way that it's very little material success related to it. I can't count my growth in the numbers of my cars or the numbers of my boats or houses or stuff like that. But I'm extremely happy when I discover or I make a connection in between different ideas, or I discover a new topic, or I can be part of a bigger project. So that's a bit where I stand. And I think it's really important to actually, in order to reach success, either if success is having a family, or success is having material wealth, or success is being the greatest artist of your time. I think it's really, really, really important to understand what really matters to you, not to the society. Where I live, the society is quite traditional in this sense. So here, success means that by the age of 35, you should have already an established family with kids, maybe 2, maybe 3, already in school, and with a house, and each one in the family with a car, and so on, and holidays and all that. And it's not so much about how happy you are with that choice, how happy you are in the morning when you wake up. Did you ever really wanted those kids or not? And I think the most important step to success is to try to isolate oneself to the rest and understand what really makes one happy, and then start building on that. And success will come, but in ways that are completely different from one to the other. So it's very difficult. I wouldn't put a stamp on it what success is, because it's very personal. And I think it should be, and I think people should acknowledge that success, it's a very personal thing.
And what is an ideal day for you then, Irina? Is it doing some painting? Is it some teaching? But when you're not doing those things, what's the fun part of your life now? Going for a hike? Walking your dog. We mustn't forget your dog, who needs quite a bit of exercise. Big dog.
Yeah, tell me about it. That was a mistake. I thought I'm much more sportive than I actually am. I love being outdoors. Yes, definitely. I love being outdoors. And I think it's a mix. If in one day, especially, now in the summer days when the days are longer, if I could squeeze a very early morning walk when um I have the forest close by, so I can walk actually in the forest, and walking in the woods with the dog is just very special with the birds in the morning, and very quiet before all the tourists will pop up and try to take the same hikes. And I would love to have energy to wake up early enough to do this, and then have a coffee, maybe with a friend or with a book, why not? And just have a beautiful coffee, and then I don't know, just enjoy the day, do stuff, cook. I love cooking, share a meal with friends or family, but it always has to do with a bit of hike. Sometimes the hike can be longer, and then that's another sort of activity. But I think if you ask me about a perfect day, well, I would say that the perfect day should have a hike, should have a coffee, should have an afternoon nap, should have beloved people to share some moments of the day with, and I don't know. And yes, why not a glass of wine? Can do. Start with a coffee, end with a wine. And I think if you make the whole circle, then it's a good karma. It's good.
Sounds ideal. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you look back at your life already, now, Irene, what would you consider to be the key milestones, the most important periods and turning points, if you like, in your life?
I think they had to do with health. Without having had too much drama, or so it was nothing really dramatic or so serious. But then again, some accidents that happened that made me turn the page, that made me turn the way into a different path. And if I think about it, I think those were the turning points, really. I mentioned before when I got sick, I think it was about the stress, the huge amount of stress. And I decided to move from the big city, to change, to start something else, where that was the beginning of really something else. And also some years ago in 2022, actually quite recently, I had another accident. Also nothing so dramatic, but an accident with my back, with my lower back, which got completely blocked, and I end up in the emergency and so on. And that was the moment when I realized that it's amazingly beautiful to be a freelancer. But then if I break my arm, or, I have to be in bed, or I'm sick, nobody will work for me. So maybe it's time that I add to the beautiful experience of life also a more stable job, which to me it's academia. And it is that because it's something that I always dreamed of. And that was the moment when I decided to actually start my PhD and, to start working on this path, basically. So this is why now I'm working on my PhD. But it always came from a moment when I discovered that I'm fragile and I need something else, or the place where I was not safe enough so that I can stay there for too long,
Now, I understand you're divorced, so I'm wondering where the love is in your life, Irina, and how important that is to have maybe a partner, someone in your life.
Well, indeed, I got divorced a year ago, and I'm in a place where I need to reestablish my own balance with my life, with my job, with my time, my finances, things that you need to arrange when something is changing so drastically. Um, I don't, I don't, I don't think I'm yet available. As my friend would say, I'm not yet on the market. But yeah, well, it's something that probably will come or will not, or I don't know. At the moment, it's a closed subject. It's not missing. It's not missing. It's nothing. It's just completely unexistent. Just because I think it's really important for me now to put everything in order in my life. And even, with this travel in the States, that it's just about to happen because I'm going to be away from here 10 months. I just decided to close down my studio. This itself, it's a huge work to close it, to do something with all the stuff, to arrange the business, the money income, the company, everything. So it's so much work to do with this that at the moment I'd say I love my dog.
Fair enough. So going forward then, do you look beyond this scholarship and spending this time in the US and what you would like to do with that down the line? And clearly it's going to be in some way in academia, but what's on your bucket list next?
I think I'm really excited about doing this or going through this experience of researching in the US because of the amazing amount of resources in terms of, archives and advisors and generally the academic life and the broadness of subjects. And because I'm interested in 19th century colonial and therefore decolonial, post-19th century decolonial art and this dialogue when it comes to natural subjects such as landscape and botanical art. And I'm trying to investigate that, and I have a few ideas that I want to follow, but I wouldn't have those subjects and those advisors over here. And I've even been told that not even one art university here has a specialist in transatlantic art. So there are so many subjects I wouldn't even know they exist, unless I have this experience. So I'm really looking forward to be able to create dialogues and to know people and to see where this would lead, because I only have a couple of threads in my hand, and just I don't really know what to do with them right now. Apparently, the Fulbright Commission thought I know what to do with them because they offered the grant. But I still feel I need to talk with a lot of people. And so I don't really know where I'm going to find my own place, if it's going to be in the architecture teaching or more in the art history or maybe in environmental humanistics or, there are a lot of hybrid subjects that would interfere one with the other. And I'm just looking for that place where I can add value with what I know. And now I don't really know where that is. So this is the next bucket list. So I can understand in this new trend of interdisciplinarity, where can I add value in the academic world? And then I will come back, and 2025 I will defend my thesis, and then I can try to see where to place myself. So yeah.
Well, of course, being an academic, and you mentioned a moment ago about sitting down with a good book. What do you like to read?
Well, I've been reading a lot of stuff related to my research subjects lately. I'm writing a book right now that should come out first in Romania, but we're trying to sell the author rights also abroad. And this is about historical intersections between nature and culture in Transylvania. So I'm reading a lot about that. I'm also reading a lot. I've been visiting Venice for the art biennale, and I've been getting some books from there, and those are about Venice in the Anthropocene, and also talking about landscape related subjects, but in dialogue with the culture. So this is something that I'm reading lately. I like short prose, and also probably because I don't really have the attention span to actually follow, a long book. So I think lately I've been reading a lot short prose. If I'm trying to think about books I'm reading outside this research area, but I think the last 2 years have been about romanticism and landscape art and stuff like that.
Poetry?
Well, not really. I think poetry and theater are not my friends yet. Unfortunately, I need to admit that I not really.
How about film?
Yes.
What do you enjoy?
Let me see what I've been. I like to follow the European festivals, especially the Cannes Film Festival when it's possible. And I like going through documentaries, obviously. Recently, I've been watching some movies, also like festival type of movies. So they are a bit alternative in terms of, a very small budget and almost an improvisation when it comes to filming and telling the story and the narrative. But I like to also to get maybe cultural things out of it, So mostly it's festival films, it's stuff like that. And of course there is always Netflix. And when things are really bad or really agitated, I turn to very easy movies, and I'm shamed for that, that I watch very easy movies. Like recently I discovered a short series on Netflix that it's a Greek movie, and it just mirrors so well all this volcanic atmosphere and family connections and environment and everything. So I think it always has to do a little bit with cultural sides of the story, but it goes either festivals, either extremely easy Julia Roberts style movies.
Well, since you mentioned that and you're about to come back to the States, what are you most looking forward to about the culture?
I guess the people. I guess it's just something that you don't have in Europe. And I've been told that maybe I just arrived into some very luckily wonderful bubbles. But then again, it's the same sort of societies that I would look for in Europe. I think in the States, I think people are really open and friendly, and that helps a lot to make new friends and to start somewhere, to place yourself somewhere and to have a good start, and to have somebody to have a coffee with, or to to call on. And I think it's just, this is so, I miss that. In Europe, I miss that. I miss Americans. Please, Europeans, don't kill me when you listen to this.
I'm sure they won't, but there's lots to look forward to on your journey.
I know. And I think I had something else in mind what I miss. It'll come back and I'll tell you, but there were a few things. Oh, and I miss the fact that probably this is the work. It's a huge work that happened in the States for years and years. But the fact that you are being accepted no matter where you come from, this is amazing. In Europe, it really makes a difference if you're German or if you're Romanian or if you're Spanish. And, these countries are much more nationalistic. And I feel in the States, you're just being accepted. And if you prove yourself and you work and you're fine and you keep your business, you mind your business and you do a good job, then you're accepted and you're fine. And I think this lack of not making differences, just judging from the country you come from, I think it's amazing because it doesn't make you feel inferior or superior just because you were born in a certain part of the world. And that, I think, is just amazing.
Well, that's a good place to finish, I think, and end this chat. I've really enjoyed it, Irina, and I'm looking forward, hopefully, to seeing you and sitting down, having a cup of coffee with you when you come back over here. So the very best of luck with that part of your journey. And thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure and looking forward to seeing you soon.
My thanks again to Irina. Don't forget you can follow the show notes for links to her social media and to her website. And you'll also find a link to our Instagram account where you can obviously join in the conversation there. We'd love to hear from you, as always. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, we love to have a review and a rating there because that increases our visibility amongst the many hundreds of podcasts out there available for you. So that helps others find the show. I'll be back next week with another talented guest from around the world of visual arts. Until then, thank you for listening.